brother. It's me, Norman Bates. Would you like to stay at my motel? Just kidding. It's me, Logan Myerz, here from Cinephellas, and I am checking in with you and reviewing the new season of Bates Motel, Season 4, Episode 1, called Danger to Himself and Others. Basically, danger to Norm himself and the people around him. I fucking love this show. I've loved it from Season 1, and each season it gets better and better and more demented as we see the downfall or the demise of Norman Bates and his psychological state. Basically you get the back story of young Norman Bates as a teenager and how he becomes the character we all know and love from Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 movie, Psycho! It's a cool premise. There's more of a backstory, how he becomes who he becomes, and a story of him and his family. His mother, like he likes to call her mother, played by Vera Farmiga, which is Norma Bates, and his brother Dylan, played by Max Thieriot. And we get a glimpse in the life from Norman's viewpoint of the life around him and how he becomes the madman, as the show progresses. And I would like to thank A&E Network for sending me a cool little Bates Motel box and a little note from Freddie Highmore that plays Norman Bates. It says, "Dear Logan, I've been watching you. Will you be watching me? On March 7th. Love, Norman." And the answer is, Freddie, I did watch, and I love the shit out of it. So thank you for that little treat and that key you sent me for Bates Motel. Hopefully you're not watching me right now or in the shower. But basically, if you've missed the first 3 seasons of the show, it's basically Freddie Highmore, Norman Bates' character, starting out as a teenager, 15, 16-year-old teenager, and his father passes away, which is a nice little backstory there too, how he passes away. So they basically take his insurance money and they flee to Oregon and they open up Bates Motel. And from there, that's when things start to get crazy. His mother, is obviously the caretaker of the motel. She runs the business. And behind the motel is their house, that huge freaking Victorian-style Addams Family looking house that everybody should know what it looks like from the movie. And it's basically taking you through the life of Norman and his family in Oregon. And as they open Bates Motel in this small Oregon town, all the town folk are like, who the hell are these people? And why are they here? Why are they opening this creepy motel? Because it's kind of set in modern times. You think it'd be like in the 60s, but it's modern times, which is a nice little twist in the show. And Vera Farmiga's character Norman is excellent. She's very out there, very protective of her sons, and she'll do whatever she has to do to get things done. And basically when they're running this motel, they get all these random people coming through and all these sub-characters that are in the show, such as Officer Romero, played by Nestor Carbonell, the guy that always looks like he's wearing eyeliner. I think he was in Batman movies. But you have all these characters coming through in this series. The Officer Romero character is kind of out there. It's like a corrupt cop, but he likes to get things done, and as the show progresses, you see more of his character get involved with Norma and all these, the backstory of basically the town's run on weed distribution and growing, and that's their cash crop, that's what the town's run on, and that's how they get all their money. And Norman's brother Dylan, Max Thieriot, gets involved with the whole marijuana sequence, and he gets involved with these bad guys, and shit hits the fan, and he gets in too deep, and you see that happen throughout the show as he gets deeper and deeper into the business of the town. And his character obviously develops better. And you find out more story about his father, which actually isn't Norman's father, which is a cool twist as well. Somebody within the family, maybe. And so, as Dylan's character is getting closer to Norman, because he doesn't really know him too well, he hasn't been around his whole life, you see that they didn't really get along. Norman's like the their character that's, obviously psycho and he's not mentally right. And Dylan's the more normal, laid-back human being that's always the middleman in the family between Norma and Norman. He's like, why are you guys so incestual? And why do you guys sleep together? He's a 16-year-old boy and his mother's sleeping with him. The fuck's up with that? That's not normal. But they're not normal at all, obviously. So the show keeps going in the first few seasons and more backstories with the local growing of weed and the distribution of that. And there's some sex trafficking from last season that was thrown in the mix. A whole bunch of people, got in the way or killed off, and kind of kept developing and keeping you interested as an audience, and me especially, because it was like out there. It's not something I would expect from Psycho, and how they can throw these different subplots and everything in there. And and last season, with the whole sex trafficking, the officer Romero, Norma, Norman's friends get involved in this whole scenario, and it leaves you at the edge of your seat at the last season, season 3. You're like, holy shit, what's going to happen next? What, is Norman going to flip out again? Or some other people going to die along the way? You don't know. And that's what's great about each season. It kind of leaves you guessing and wanting more and more. And some other characters that are in the show, one being Emmy, is played by Olivia Cook, which is Norman's best friend. She has a lot of health problems. She always has an oxygen mask or whatever you want to call it. And then Norman's lover, Bradley, has a huge part in the first 3 seasons. That's played by Nicola Peltz. And there's something between her and Norman the last season kind of leads up, and you're like, holy shit! Like, what's going to happen next? So, as all these stories and backstories are coming together in the character development, we come into the newest season, season 4, episode 1. And Norman is basically missing. His brother Dylan's looking for him all over the place, putting flyers up. Norma's flipping out, freaking out. Where's her beloved son at? Where is he? I can't find him. And the opening sequence is, him in this old farm in the middle of nowhere, and he's getting flashbacks of what happened the night previously. And it's kind of cool because as he becomes more psychotic and more mentally unstable, he envisions his mother Norma being there with him or becoming him when indeed she's not actually there. He's slowly falling into a deep black hole. So as Norman is envisioning his mother there, it's like a sick, demented, imaginary friend that you had as a kid, but it tells you to kill people and basically hurt people that really shouldn't be hurt at all. They're just normal, humble people, and they just get in the way of Norman with his quest to basically get rid of people, mostly women. He has this sick, twisted obsession with women, starting with his mother to other characters in the show. One thing that is different in the first episode of season 4 compared to the first 3 seasons is Norma and Norman have, that weird, twisted connection, between mother and son that's a little bit too much. It kind of makes you feel uneasy because nobody's like that with their parents. Kind of like lovers in a way without actually having sex, but they sleep together and they're cozy together. But in the first episode, Norma realizes that her son is out of control and he's doing things that should not be done and hurting people along the way, and she's finally realizing hey, he needs to get help and be put away or just get help so he's not thinking these bad thoughts and doing these bad things to people. So in the first episode, Norman's finally caught up with somebody and he gets institutionalized in a mental ward or whatever, and he's freaking out because he's tied down to the bed, and eventually Norma finds out where he's at and she's trying to get him out, but that doesn't happen right away, and it's starting to break their bond between one another. They're slowly falling apart, and they don't have that cohesiveness that they did in the first 3 seasons. They're drifting apart as he becomes madder and more crazy. So through that segment of the episode, you see him locked up and freaking out and trying to get the hell out of this mental ward, and Norma's doing whatever she can to get her son out. And other characters within the show, like Officer Romero, you see a glimpse of him on a boat disposing of a body that had to do with the last season of the sex trafficking, and he's taking care of business as a corrupt cop would do and cleaning up his evidence. And, Norma's always trying to reach out to Officer Romero for his assistance and making sure that Norman isn't found out of what he's actually capable of, and that's killing people. And that was apparent in the first 3 seasons. He did quite a bit of that. And Dylan in this episode is looking for his brother, and then he eventually goes to help Emma out. She's in the hospital with a whole bunch of health issues, so he's there for her because he's a good human being and he actually cares for her and has feelings for her. And then fast forward a little bit to the episode, we see Norman's back at home in his comfort zone. His mother's not around, Dylan's gone. So he's dressing up, in his mother's bathrobe, putting pearls on in the mirror, and just looking extremely creepy because he's not all there. He's Norma, like she's in him and he's becoming her. And as you guessed it, some people show up in the motel and he shows up in the door in his motherly attire. Emma's mother shows up to get a hotel room or motel room, and she wants to be there for her daughter that's in the hospital, and her and Norman don't really hit it off, and one thing leads to the next, and you're like, holy shit! He's flipping out again, like always, because that's what he does best. So there's a lot going on in this episode, from things in the last season that are building up into the new season. It's a new chapter in Bates Motel. It's darker, it's more twisted. It's the Norman Bates that we know from film. He's fucked up in the head, he's not all there mentally, and he's got one thing in mind, and that's to kill anybody that gets in this path. I love this show, like I said in the beginning. The characters, the acting is phenomenal. Every character in the show has been really, really good from season 1 to season 4. A lot of character build-up. On top of the dreariness of Oregon, and it's always rainy looking. It's a perfect setting for a horror movie or TV show. And it gives it that perfect backdrop needed for Psycho to keep the show going and giving it that overall eeriness that is done so well. And honestly, A&E picking this up was great. I think it's the best show on that network right now. And I'm always excited for Monday night when it comes on to see what happens next in the sick and twisted mind of young Norman Bates. Bates Motel is turned into something much larger than I ever anticipated or ever guessed. It's a complete 180 from the beginning of Dylan's character, Norma's character, Officer Romero. It's always something new and refreshing each season, on top of seeing Norman become who he was destined to be, a serial killer. And it's really hard for me to root for a character each week because they change so often and you don't know what's going to happen. But overall, it just mixes so well, and all the storyline and the characters, they work well. And it's really fucking good. And I wouldn't steer anybody wrong, but you should definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. Binge watch on Netflix. Get up to speed with it. It's on every Monday night on A&E. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. Freddie Highmore is probably his best character yet. He plays it perfect, and he's just a fucking great serial killer at such a young age. And hopefully one day we'll see him as the older peeping Tom in the motel and the whole shower sequence. So what will happen next? Who will survive? And will Norman kill anybody else? We won't know until next week. So thanks for checking out my review, and check out Bates Motel on A&E. I am giving Bates Motel a 4 out of 5. Check it out. Cheers!